All right, you guys are diving into the second main chunk of the book of Genesis. Last week you were in the first main part, and you'll recall that it sets up the storyline of the entire Bible. It's the story of Yahweh, the Creator God. He makes all things. He creates humanity to be an authority, to rule, and to help the world flourish and prosper, and humans choose sin and rebellion. And so the stories of rebellion, you remember, just were about the world and humanity just spinning out of control in sin and selfishness. The next main section of the book is what God is doing to respond to human rebellion and sin, and that's in Abraham and his family. So remember, the key hinge piece of the entire book was right here in chapter 12. God promises to Abram that he's going to bless him. He's going to make him into a great nation, a family, and somehow, we're not specified, but somehow through Abram's family, he's going to bring blessing to all nations, blessing and salvation to the rebellious world. And so the camera zooms in on Abraham and his family in chapters 12 through 50. And there's just a couple key themes here that unite all of these stories. So first thing you'll find is that God maintains his promise to bless. And so the blessing to Abram and then to the following generations is repeated over and over and over again. Look for the words blessing as you read through the book. So there's the stories about Abraham. In a couple key chapters right in here, chapters 15 and 17, God makes a formal promise to Abraham, a covenant, it's called in the Bible. It's God's commitment to his promise that he's going to save and bless and redeem humanity through Abraham's family. And so you read through, the promise is passed on from Abraham, and then to Isaac, his son, and then to Jacob, and then it's passed on through Jacob's 12 sons. And particularly to two sons that get focused on at the latter half of the book, the sons of Joseph and the sons of Judah. So that's one main theme, is that the promise gets continued on through the book. But it's not like things are not all rosy, right? Because the problem is that God's working with humans to work out his salvation, right? And so really the main plot line that unites all of this is it's just story after story after story of Abraham or Isaac or Jacob or Jacob's sons putting the promise into danger, threatening the promise through their own stupidity or selfishness or whatever. So you have stories about Abraham like giving away his wife twice, right? So you have stories, his son Isaac does the same. They're very human stories about the struggle that God's people have to trust in God's promises. So there's stories about Abraham's faith being tested, right? Or Isaac's faith. There's the stories about Jacob, and Jacob is a total chump. His name means deceiver, and he deceives his brother. He's a liar. He's a cheat. But God is committed to work out his salvation and his blessing, even in spite of Jacob's stupidity and stubbornness. And so that's what those stories about Jacob are all about. It's a very human story about human sin, ignorance, stupidity, stupid decisions that people make, but God is at work no matter what. And that story, that theme gets summarized here at the end of the book. Jacob has a whole bunch of sons, 12 sons, and there's a whole bunch of sibling rivalry. Most of the sons hate one of the youngest sons named Joseph, and so they kidnap him, they try to kill him, they sell him to slavery down in Egypt. And what these Joseph stories are about at the end here, they really are summarizing the entire book. God is committed to working out his plan of salvation through human beings, through Abraham and his family. But all the main characters of the story constantly rebel and threaten God's promises. And so these Joseph stories are all about how is God going to save and work out his plan despite what Joseph's brothers are trying to do to him, to kill him. And so the story is a very, very complex exploration of how God's at work in the world. God's mostly absent through a lot of the book, a lot of the stories of Joseph here. He never talks. He's working behind the scenes. But when he shows up to save and to redeem. And the whole book of Genesis really is summarized right here at the end of the book. Joseph meets up with his brothers, and he says in chapter 50, verse 20, you guys were planning all of this for evil. And that's basically what all humanity is doing throughout the whole book. They're making stupid decisions, and they're planning evil. But then Joseph says, but God was planning and working it all out for salvation and for life. And that's exactly what is going on through the whole book of Genesis. And so that's kind of the setup that the whole book gives us to the storyline of the whole Bible, is God's at work to redeem and save through this family, no matter what decisions or stupid rebellious choices that human beings make. And so the story doesn't end with chapter 50. It just continues right on with the book of Exodus. All these questions up in the air. How is God going to fulfill his promises? What's he going to do through this family? And how is he going to save the world through these people? So that's what you're going to continue reading in Exodus. But that's the book of Genesis, and I hope that's helpful. It's a very powerful book that summarizes what God is up to in the world and how we can either help or hinder or be part of what God is doing to save and redeem his world. So I hope this is helpful for you. See you next time.